What's going on, lovely people? It is your girl, Kendra. Welcome back to another Queenly critique on my favorite series so far, Genius, MLK, and X. We are going to go over episode 5 and 6. Y'all, we are almost done. We are almost done with the series, but let's get into these episodes right now. And don't forget to subscribe. Hey, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of episode 5 and 6. Let me tell y'all something. Episode 5 was actually my favorite. And one of the reasons why it's my favorite is because it focused on Coretta and Betty. And, you know, being the wives of these prominent, amazing, iconic leaders, sometimes the women get lost. So the fact that they were able to capture the essence and the emotions and the beauty of the iconic Coretta Scott King and Betty Shabazz was just a chef's kiss. Again, like, I really enjoyed this episode thoroughly. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Like, I got my notes right here. And like I said, I'm going to try to nip this up and tie it in a bow real cute for y'all, all right? So, anywho, I knew about Betty Shabazz being adopted. And the reason why I know that is because I read another book actually by her daughter, Eliaza Shabazz, and I think it's called Betty Before X. And I knew that her birth mom, end up leaving her and end up starting like a whole nother family, because from my understanding she had Betty out of wedlock. So basically she leaves home, she starts all over, and she ends up getting remarried and having a whole nother family. But it seemed like she really resented Betty, because it was almost like Betty was a reminder of her past. So it was super sad as far as that is concerned, because I was just like, well, man, like, you know, like I've never, you know, my mother is gone. My mother has been gone. In September it will be 3 years. So I've never really had like that strained relationship with my mom. Like, I actually had a very good relationship with my mother, and sometimes it's super hard for me to even deal with her not being here now. So the fact that, you know, she was dealing, you know, with her mother, who was very much alive, and she ends up being passed on to another family, I can only imagine the feelings and the emotions even with that. So yeah, thank God for the Malloys, right? All right. So also the young Coretta, like, whoever is in charge of casting, like, for real, brava to you, because baby girl looked just like Coretta Scott King when she was a little girl. Like, if y'all Google a picture of Coretta Scott King, or even look on Bernice King's page, I believe that she has a picture of her mom when she was a little girl. And I was like, oh, that was accurate. I was like, whoo, I was like, the casting is like phenomenal. Yes. So, basically, and even a little girl that played Betty Shabazz, very identical to Betty as a young girl. Now, I don't think there's a picture of Betty Shabazz, but I knew there was a picture of Coretta Scott when she was a little girl. So yeah, and having those moments with their real mothers, it was very emotional for me. Like, it just reminded me of me and my mom, especially when I was a little girl. Having that moment with their mothers was just very heart tugging for me, because I remember even having those moments with my mom where my mother will be doing my hair, or my mother will be putting something on me, and she always would tell me, Kendra, you're beautiful. Kendra, you are my baby girl. You're amazing. You're gonna do great things. Like, I mean, my mom literally spoke life into me and my sisters. Like, that's just who she was, and that's what I really miss. But anywho, so you can tell in this episode that the house is a little dismissive in this episode. And I think this is the reason why this series is so genius, like literally the name, because it literally captures the emotions of these men. Like, it shows that these men are imperfect. I was like, this is freaking genius. But I was kind of pissed off, because I was like, I mean, y'all ain't gotta be dismissive like that. Like, for an example, like, you see a very pregnant Coretta again. Fun fact, if y'all didn't know, Martin actually wanted 8 kids, but they settled for 4. I was like, yes, Coretta, that was smart. Hallelujah. But anyway, like, you know, she was pregnant. And, you know, she was trying to have a conversation with him, and he was acting all awkward and weird. And I was like, I don't like that so hot. You know, it was just kind of weird. And then, like, they cut to Betty, going to the temple and trying to teach a class and finding out that the girl can't even, not the girl, excuse me, but Betty not even the teacher no more. Like, she ended up getting, like, just demoted and was like, okay, well, you can't be the teacher anymore. We have somebody else put it in your place. And no one even told her. Malcolm didn't even tell her. And, basically, Malcolm was emphasizing to her, like, listen, I need you to be at home. And she's like, well, I'm more than just your wife and the mother of your child. Like, the class gives me purpose. It gives me meaning. And still, he was just kind of like, well, your purpose is being at home, basically. That's basically what he was trying to say to her. And I was just like, the dudes were really being, like, really dismissive on this episode. I like that. Like, I really side-eyed both of them on this episode. I ain't even gonna hold you. But anyway, so Martin ended up getting arrested again. And, it kind of made me sad to see Coretta just kind of just shaking, and her eyes were just filling up with tears. And he was like, I need you to be strong. I need you to be strong. And I'm like, why are you telling a pregnant woman that she needs to be strong? I was like, what is wrong with y'all? I'm like, like, Coretta is clearly pregnant and she is struggling. Like, what? It has an effect on her. But anyway, so next, the next scene comes, and Daddy King is at their house, and they're trying to figure out, like, hey, listen, we got to figure out the strategy to get him out of jail. So Coretta, has an idea. And so Daddy King dismisses her, and it's like, no, we got this. Take care of your child and rest yourself, because we gonna figure this out on our own. And I'm like, y'all could have listened to her idea. Like, y'all could have listened to her. Like, this is just ridiculous. So I was kind of upset. I was a little infuriated by that. But then we're fast forwarding. So you can tell that there is obvious tension in the Shabazz home, okay? So she's trying to force him to eat. She at least makes him a smoothie. He's like, no, I don't want a smoothie. Coffee will be fine. And she's like, look, you need to eat. Like, sir, like, what is wrong with you? And he's just kind of like, no, I don't want to eat anything. So she expresses herself again. And she's like, listen, I'm telling you my concerns. Our house is, dealing with some things. And obviously, I ain't trying to be funny. That check obviously ain't cut it, because the fact that their plumbing was still kind of jacked up, I was like, Lord, I said, well, how much did Elijah Muhammad? At this point, she's super frustrated. She's angry. And she's like, you know what? I'm sick of this. I'm leaving. Deuces. I'm taking me and Atala out. I'm sick and tired of you not listening to me. I can understand her being super, super frustrated, because it's like, listen, like, yo, I am expressing to you my concerns, and my concerns are not being heard. I am highly upset and I am offended. So, she ends up, like I said, I'm looking at my notes. So, she gets to her mom's house, right? And the mom could tell something was up, but she didn't want to press the issue. She was just kind of like, okay, well, obviously something's wrong with my daughter, but I'm not going to press it. I'm just going to just take my grandbaby and let her come in the house. So, basically, and you could tell even the mom, too, still wasn't for her converted to the Nation of Islam either. Because if you did not know, Betty was raised, from the Baptist faith. So, or the Christian faith. And, she converted to Islam. So, and it was this one scene in particular where her mom was trying to, I guess, feed her like some pot roast or some pork loin or something like that. And Betty was just like, Mom, I don't eat pork anymore. And she was like, well, you used to. And she's like, well, I don't now. And so her mom kind of makes this face like, it was something else. I mean, even though I think she wasn't for her decisions, but as a loving mother, I'm gonna love you nonetheless. I may not agree with what you do, but I'm gonna love you nonetheless. So, then it goes to Coretta, right? And so Coretta, you can tell she's trying to keep her keep her composure, but the pressure is getting to her. Like, you can genuinely tell the pressure is getting to her. So, what ends up happening, even, Ralph's wife is picking up on that, Juanita, and she's like, sis, I got you. Like, do you need anything? And so, Coretta's just trying to be, perfect Patty. She's like, no, I'm fine. It's okay. Everything's okay. Yada, yada, yada. And so, what ends up happening, she gets a call from her oldest daughter's school, because what ends up happening is that Yolanda gets into a fight because somebody is talking about her daddy going to jail. And I mean, I don't blame baby girl. Like, honestly, you talking about my daddy or my family members, I'm gonna be like, oh, we about to fight. Like, you ain't gonna be talking about my daddy. What? You know, like, you ain't gonna talk about my daddy, and the only thing my daddy is trying to do is help us as a people. Like, no, you don't have to talk about my dad. So what ends up happening, right? The mother of the other child, like Coretta by this time is at the school, right? So the mama of the other child gonna try to gaslight her and be like, well, I'm surprised that your daughter would even fight because your husband and you are supposed to be for nonviolence. I was like, girl, are you kidding me? And it's so funny because Coretta like balled up her fist a little bit. It looked like she wanted to hit her in the face. I mean, honestly, the mama was getting on my nerves too. I wanted to hit her too. I'm sorry. I was like, sis, like, negress, please. Like, girl, gone somewhere. I was so over her. But back to the next scene. So then Ella Mae, who happens to be Malcolm X's sister, who don't even really care for Betty anyway in the first place, she's coming to Malcolm in his office. She's like, look, bro, this don't look good on you. You need to go ahead and nip this in the bud like ASAP because people gonna start talking. Betty not here. You need to go and get your wife. And so he's like, well, none of this is none of your concern because you don't even like her. Like, stay out of my marriage, basically. And Ella Mae is like, well, look, I'm just trying to look out for you. And then the next thing you know, the girl ends up getting demoted. And I was like, I said, Malcolm just cutting everybody, ain't he? I was like, no. But that's literally what happened. I was like, oh my God. I was like, now him demoting his sister and suspended her for 90 days. I was like, man, all she's trying to do is help. Like, come on, Malcolm, come on. Like, Malcolm was doing the most. He was doing the most in this particular episode. He really was. But fast forwarding, Daddy King comes to the house, right? And basically, he tells Coretta that, hey, just to let you know, they keeping, Martin longer. So at this point, she's reached her breaking point. So she goes into the kitchen and she literally starts to scream like on the top of her head. And, she's like, you know what? I have to do what I think is best, and I'm going to call my friend because I believe that he can help me to get out of this particular situation. So basically, she calls in a favor, and it ended up working because the friend knew President Kennedy, and President Kennedy, I guess he called around and ended up working out in his favor, and King ended up getting out of jail. Well, he wasn't President Kennedy at the time. He was actually Senator Kennedy. Excuse me. Let me be clear. He was a senator. He was still running for president. I guess he was running against Nixon at that time. So he wasn't president yet. He was Senator Kennedy. Senator. But like I said, ended up working in his favor. So basically, Coretta changed history just from that one phone call. Ain't that something? To show you that woman can be trusted. Betty finally confesses to her mom that, listen, I left Malcolm. I just don't know how to be a wife. He's requiring me to do all these things, and I just don't think that I can do this anymore. Like, I barely spend time with him. He's always at the mosque, and it's not that I don't understand the obligation, but you need to understand that your family is a priority over what's going on in the temple. So, her mom gave her like some sage advice, basically telling her to find the happy moments even in their difficult times. But the funny thing is she ends up leaving, and then she ended up going to her birth mama house. So I was like, I kind of chuckled a little bit because I was like, how far does this woman live for her to be walking? I was like, now, in my mind, like literally in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, how far does this lady live? Like, I hope she lives close. I'm like, because for you to just go for a walk, that was a long tail walk. If your mom was in proximity, geez. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, I just had so many questions. But she ended up talking to her birth mom, and I think the conversation was pretty intense. I'm not going to hold y'all. It was pretty intense. But I think it helped her to sort out her differences with her mom. And I think that it helped her to bring closure to some things. So then we kick back to Betty reminiscing about her husband, missing Malcolm or whatever. And so she's reminiscing about their wedding day and their wedding night. And, I'm sitting here like, okay, I hope this is not to be TV appropriate. But so anyway, she's reminiscing and she has on like the pretty wedding dress. They're signing the paper. He looks at her and he, winks at her. Like I say, Aaron just has like these beautiful eyes. Like I would love to wink at, he can wink at me anytime. I'm so serious. He can wink at me anytime. But anywho, see, look, I keep getting lost. I'm sorry, y'all. But I just thought it was super, super cute. I thought it was super cute. And, then the wedding night, they just hug and kiss each other. But I wasn't expecting to see, Malcolm X's chest. I was not expecting that. I said, ooh. I said, talk about intimacy, Lord. But I just wasn't expecting to see the shoulders and the chest. I said, well, all right. I said, I don't know if I should be seeing this. I said, I feel like I'm peeping. I'm like, ooh, all right. I said, it was a little spicy in that scene. I said, okay, I am here for it. I'm here for it. But anywho, Malcolm ends up coming to the house, right? He comes to the house. And I think it's funny because it's like in my mind, I was just like, well, finally, like you just go be petty and just not go after your wife. Like, no, like I'm kind of happy that your sister straightened you out because it's like, sir, like you got a whole daughter out here and you got a whole wife. You're not going over there to see if she all right. So, anywho, like I said, he comes to the house. And of course, they talk about their relationship and, they establish some boundaries, which all healthy relationships should do, like establish your boundaries, right? So they establish their boundaries and they do like some playful banter or whatever. And they decide to just dance swiftly in each other's arms. And like I said, the chemistry between Jamie and Aaron is unmatched, honey. It is unmatched. Like I really want them to do another romance movie. I'm like, it ain't gotta be historical figures, just both of y'all in the movie. I don't know what it's gonna be about, but just let them have just another love story because their chemistry is unmatched. Like it's amazing. Like I love it. But anywho, so Martin is finally home and Coretta is just so happy to see him. And he tells her again that she changed the course of history for her making that phone call. Because like I said, Coretta is that girl. I mean, she's really that girl. But they cut to Betty listening to the radio, and then when Malcolm X called her brown sugar, I was like, I was so happy. Let me tell y'all why I was happy about that. Because I was like, if they don't do anything else, they better address that he called her brown sugar. And I just think it's just so cute. And I think he also called her Brown Betty too, which I was like, oh my God, I said, I am so here for it. And the reason why I know this is because Atala, the oldest daughter, or Ambassador Shabazz, she actually talked about it. And she talked about how, her father would call him my sweet brown Betty or my sweet brown sugar, which I just thought was just so, just made my little heart melt. I was like, yes, Malcolm, call her your brown sugar. Yes! I was here for it. But yeah, they end up dancing with each other again. So I think that dancing was really their thing. I'm not really sure. Maybe that's what it was. And I think I'm happy that Ambassador Shabazz or Miss Atala Shabazz was a part of this movie process. Because she's like, nah, y'all gonna do my parents right, But, the next thing you hear that conversation privately. And then I realized that they're being taped and recorded. And then they cut to Dr. King and Coretta, and you hear their conversation being taped and recorded. So I'm sitting here saying, shoot, the FBI is recording them. Awkward. Like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. But yeah, the FBI was recording them and recording their conversations. And I was like, this is intense. Like, I was not expecting that. Yeah, so now we are to episode 6. So episode 6 had me on a roller coaster of questions and emotions. Because I was like, wait a minute. And it had me kind of questioning my Black history knowledge a little bit. Because I was like, I don't think some of these scenes are true. I said, I think some of these scenes are made up. But y'all will see what I'm saying once I'm deeper into the review. But anyway, so I appreciated that they also acknowledged another civil rights hero who is Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was ahead of the civil rights, struggle in Mississippi. But unfortunately, he got assassinated in his driveway in front of his kids and wife. And I'm just like, the world is such an evil place. For you to kill someone at their home is ridiculous to me. Like, I still, when I think about how he was killed, it's just like, people were just ruthless back then, and still are to this day. But anywho, the scene turns into MLK, Ralph Rustin, John Lewis, and the guy who they picked to play John Lewis, he did a good job too. Yeah, Jeans was coming with some heavy casting. Like, I'm like, bravo, for real. But basically, it turns into all of them and a couple of other figureheads who were in the movement, and they're discussing the civil rights bill with Kennedy, and you can tell they kind of not having it. They're like, well, we can pass this bill, but, we might need to do something else to kind of bring a little bit more attention to what, we are doing. And, President Kennedy, because he's President Kennedy now, he's like, well, won't this actually do it by me implementing this act? He's like, I mean, yeah, it can, but I think we need to do something more powerful and extra, which was the March on Washington. So, he doesn't agree at first. Kennedy doesn't agree at first, but then he was just like, you know what? Let's just go for it. So the scene cuts to Malcolm X talking about the attacks of the police, and I believe at the LA mosque, and basically one of the guys ended up being killed, and the other ones were in critical condition. And so, the reporters are like, so are you going to retaliate? What are you going to do? Da 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 da. And so he's like, well, the Nation of Islam teaches us not to, we are actually people of peace. But if we are attacked, we're going to defend ourselves. Like, that's basically what they were taught. And, of course, like people do, people like to spin a narrative, and they kind of ran with the story. And I think that's why a lot of people feel like MLK, or not MLK, but Malcolm X and Dr. King were just like these evil, Lord, not evil people, but it's like, Malcolm was like the evil, yeah, let's kill him, let's defend ourselves type of person, and Martin was just a man of peace. And it's like, well, actually, both of them were warriors. Stop putting them against each other, because that's not really what it was. Malcolm was actually a man of peace, and so was Dr. King. But, like I said, Malcolm was just like, listen, you come from my family, I'm coming for you, okay? Okay. But anywho, so, basically, I think some of these events were made up. I'm not gonna hold you, because I was sitting here like, when did John Lewis meet Malcolm X in the ice cream parlor to talk about the march? I was like, that was not accurate. I'm like, I don't think that happened. I said, I might be wrong. I said, let me do my research again, because I'm like, I don't think that actually happened. I actually kind of laughed. But, I actually believe that Malcolm X was not in the States during the March on Washington. I think he was actually in Ghana. I'm like, I don't even think he was in the United States when it was going on. But, yeah. So I just was like, okay, I feel like that scene was kind of made up. I said, but okay, whatever. So they are discussing the March on Washington again, and one of the guys is a hater, and I don't think it was A. Philip Randolph. It was another guy. It was another guy who was kind of just like, well, I just don't think that we should be doing it like this. I think we shouldn't do the march at all. And so one of the other guys tells King, like, listen, the reason why he got a problem is because you and Kennedy are tight. And I guess, like I said, back in those days, people were just really not together. It's funny because you think that because you see the pictures and you see the people all together and you see them all unified, you just automatically think that, hey, they obviously must have got along. Everybody was fine. But no, actually, they did not get along like that. And there were just a few of a group of committed people who went for the cause. Let's just be real. So, yeah. But, let's see, back to my notes. But I think he ends up putting his personal feelings aside so they can go through the march. But speaking of haters, Clyde X, like I said, I'm going to keep calling him a hater because he is a hater. Clyde X is a hater. Hater. But he gets to run the paper instead of Malcolm now. So I was like, that's a little suspect. I'm like, so now all of a sudden y'all just demoting people like how Malcolm was demoting people. I'm like, so is this what it is? Is this the game now? Like, people just demoting people without people knowing? So, it was just kind of interesting to me. And then, Malcolm gets approached by their new secretary with food from Betty, because Betty's like, look, Malcolm don't eat. Let me send him some food. So then he asked Betty, or not, excuse me, he asked the secretary, he's like, hey, do you know where the other secretary is? And so I'm sitting like, why is he asking about the other secretary? I said, Malcolm, what's going on? And so the other lady is like, well, no, I don't know where she is, but from my understanding, we have to take her as a cautionary tale. And I was like, cautionary tale? I was like, what's going on? Again, I'm suspicious, right? So then here comes this senator. I think his name was Truman, whatever his name was. Now, I didn't mention him in one particular episode because I just kind of felt like he wasn't relevant. But in this particular instant, he's relevant right now. Because what he gonna do is do the petty stuff. And basically, I think that anytime, especially during that time and era, when white people's lives were threatened in any form or fashion, they had to come up with some type of excuse. So basically what happens is he's like, we don't need to do the March on Washington because of Rustin's really jacked up past. So if y'all don't know, Bayard Rustin was a gay man. Bayard Rustin was a Quaker, from my understanding, and he also talked to people who were involved in other political, I guess, quote unquote, agendas. So this makes him a communist. And I'm just like, well, I don't think that it makes him someone who's trying to threaten a nation. The only thing that they're trying to do is make change for, people, that not only black people, but all people of different colors, so we can all have, an equal opportunity in life, right? So they're just like, well, y'all should dismiss this because this is just ridiculous, and it's gonna make our nation look terrible. And I was like, this white cracker, Lord forgive me. I was like, but that's literally how I was feeling, because I was like, y'all just doing the most. This is just the most. But anyway, Rusty comes up because it's out in the news or it's in a newspaper. He throws the paper. He's like, listen, I'm gonna have to bounce because I'm gonna make this look bad, and we need to march on Washington to happen. So King is like, nope, we ain't about to be punked. We standing behind you. You our guy. We ain't got time for this. So they make a statement to the press, and they are basically on Rustin's side, which I'm like, yeah, that's your boy. Be on his side. He's been helping y'all with everything. But then here we go. I was like, now, Martin, who this lady you hugging up on? I said, you ain't got no decorum. I said, Martin. I said, didn't even know somebody was taking pictures of you, sir. You didn't even know somebody was taking pictures. You had no idea this person was taking pictures of you. Now, it's looking worse than what it actually is. And then from my understanding, allegedly, I'm going to keep saying allegedly, that was Miss Dorothy Cotton. And Dorothy Cotton, from my understanding, is still alive. But allegedly, she was one of his ladies. Allegedly. I'm not saying that it's true, but that's what I heard. But that's a whole nother topic for another day. But anywho, March on Washington happens. Coretta is by his side. I kind of feel like they rushed that speech, but I know that the speech is it's owned by, I forgot who it's owned by, so they couldn't use it, in the series. So, because in my mind, I was just like, that ain't what the speech said. But I was like, that was a little rushed to me. But okay, I said, all right. I said, I get the cinematography and everything that's going on. So I said, okay, I'm here for it. And then, they put Malcolm in the audience. And I was like, Malcolm was not here, y'all. I was like, Malcolm was not in this March on Washington. Why are y'all fibbing? He wasn't there. But then again, like I said, I'm going to do my research again. I might be wrong. But from my understanding, he was not there. So I'm like, what is going on here? But anywho, so he's observing it. And he calls it the farce on Washington, which I just think is kind of funny. I'm sorry. It was very funny to me. But the march is successful, of course. And so the wives thought they were going to meet, Kennedy. And here come Martin like, oh, well, no, y'all can't meet him because it's protocol. And in my mind, I was just like, nah, Martin, you could have let her meet him. Stop playing. But anyway. So anyway, next scene, Malcolm ends up visiting old girl who was in the other episode. So I was like, Malcolm, what are you doing? I'm like, sir, what are you doing? You're going to visit the girl? So from my understanding, Sister Girl was the secretary of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And this is the cautionary tale. It's her. So basically, she out there with the baby that she has had with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had basically banned her, which I think is so weird to me. I was like, how you gonna get this girl pregnant and then ban her? I'm like, but you did it. Like, and now you don't want to take care of your responsibilities? That's terrible. So, she's exiled and she can't be taken care of. And, she's like trying to convince Malcolm, like, listen, your boy is not who he is. He's a flawed man, and I need you to see him as a flawed man. And like I said, Malcolm didn't want to hear it at first, but I feel like slowly he started to believe her. So, Malcolm eventually accepts that, okay, he's trying to justify the sins and the actions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but nothing can really justify it, especially if you're not taking care of your kids. Like, all these kids you have out of wedlock, sir, that ain't called for. But anyway, Betty approaches him, right? And she's like, what's going on? And, excuse me, y'all. He's like, yeah, I went by old girl to see what was going on. And so she was just like, okay, here comes boundaries again. Like, how come you didn't tell me that you were going to go see her? Like, you got to tell me these things. At least run it by me and let me know. He was just like, well, you have nothing to worry about. And she was just like, that's not the point. You just should have just told me what was going on. So I was like, oh, child. I was like, see, I said, Lord. I was like, Martin. Not Martin, excuse me. I was like, Malcolm is just, Lord. I was like, Lord, someone needs him to just really just reestablish the boundaries. That's all we ask, sir. That's all we ask. But anyway, so fast forward. Kennedy gets assassinated. And Coretta is in the kitchen when she hears it on the radio, and the dish falls out her hand, and Martin runs into the kitchen, and she collapses in his arms and was crying. And so you can tell that Martin is shook. Like his face is like completely shook. Just shook. And basically, sorry y'all, see I'm trying to record, do all these things all at the same time. But anyway, so basically he is shook. And then it cuts to Clyde X and Malcolm all being at the mosque. And then another guy comes in and he's like, hey y'all, listen, we need to turn on the TV real quick. So they turn on the TV and they find out that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Lord Jesus, Kennedy gets, assassinated. And so Clyde X cautions Malcolm not to say anything. He's like, sir, don't say a word, okay? Don't say anything. And so Malcolm, of course, says something. Like, he just, Malcolm in his fire, in his zeal, still says something. And I'm just like, Lord, I'm like, you just putting more grease on the fire, Malcolm. What in the world? So, of course, he has to face the consequences. Now, I will say this. The scene between him and, I forgot his name, but I know he just recently passed away. But yeah, the scene between them was a acting class. Do you hear me? Was an acting master class. Because when I tell you, I felt the intensity and the emotions like a father talking to a son and a son talking to his father. I was like, whoo! I said, I feel this scene. I said, it's a lot of emotion invoked in this scene. I said, whoo, Jesus. But they killed it. That scene, they killed it. And basically, Malcolm wasn't letting up. He was like, yeah, like, I'm calling you out because you're basically a hypocrite. And Elijah Muhammad was like, let me tell you something. I called you out. I rescued you. Like, you would be nothing without me. Basically, I hate the comparison, but it's almost like how David Ruffin was in the Temptations movie. Like, y'all would be nothing without David Ruffin. It's kind of like how Honorable Elijah Muhammad was. Like, you would never be anything without me. And so he ends up suspending him for 90 days. And Malcolm is beyond pissed. Like, Malcolm is pissed. Even the guy who was trying to grab his shoulder, Malcolm like, get off of me. He's very, very angry. So Malcolm gets in his car. And we almost see, like, the softness comes on him. And he starts to cry. And he's heartbroken. Like, I found out the man that I put on this pedestal has flaws. And then he does something which is beyond repentance. Okay? And this is someone that I genuinely loved like a father. And now I'm suspended for 90 days. Like, this is a lot for me. This is a lot. I wanted to give him a hug so bad at that moment because those tears were real. Like, those tears were completely real. And it was just beautiful, y'all. It was beautiful. Aaron he's an amazing actor, I tell you. And that's how it ends. But yeah, y'all, this has been another Kweenly Critique. Now, unfortunately, you know, like I said, the last 2 episodes are coming up next week. Unfortunately, we know how it ends, but I believe they are going to put it together in such a beautiful way, and I just cannot wait to see it. So this has been another Kweenly Critique. I am your girl, Kendra. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on the next video. Switches and sparkles. Mwah. Bye.